Who is the cutest in Marvel movies? There is no doubt that it must be Baby Groot. Looking at his innocent cute face, Jobber has to call him the Master. Today, I'll take you to see the growth of Baby Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Since Peter Quill, Gamora, Drax, Rocket and Baby Groot were renowned as the Guardians of the Galaxy, they had been adhering to the duty of guarding the world. One day, the five of them just defeated a big octopus monster, Obelisk. Poor Obelisk got knocked down in a few minutes. It turned out that Obelisk stole the special battery of the Sovereign Race. They helped the Sovereign Race regain the battery. They were supposed to be paid for it, but the Queen of the Sovereign Race offered to exchange the hostage with them. The hostage was Gamora's sister, Nebula. Since Ronan's ambition was destroyed by Baron, Nebula became a lost dog. She was caught by the Sovereign Race. Gamora still loved her sister, so she agreed to the Queen's terms. However, Rocket didn't compromise with that. He hid a few batteries when they weren't paying attention. It also angered the Queen. A large number of spacecraft were sent to pursue them. There was no way out, they could only run away. The Sovereign's spacecraft pursued them. When they were about to be caught, suddenly, an accident happened. All the pursuit fighters behind suddenly blew themselves up. It turned out that someone helped the Guardians. The Guardians' spacecraft crashed down at that time. They fell on an inexplicable planet. Fortunately, the spacecraft landed successfully without danger. At this time, the one who helped them appeared. An old man appeared with an ant girl. The girl's name was Mantis. The old man claimed to be Peter's father, Ego. Though he gave an affectionate speech, Peter didn't believe him. Ego was not in a hurry. He let them stay because this planet was his. At a deeper level, this planet was his body. The Guardians also got to know Mantis. Mantis had a special ability. As long as she touched someone, she could feel their feelings, could even manipulate their consciousness. Why did Ego bring along Mantis? Because he wanted her to hypnotize him. Peter, Gamora, Drax and Mantis went to the city. Rocket and Groot stayed to guard Nebula. On the other side, the Queen of the Sovereign Race found Peter's adoptive father, Yondu. They suffered a huge loss in this pursuit. The Queen offered a large reward to him to capture Peter and his crew. Yondu led the Cosmic Bandit group to the planet where Peter was located. Though Rocket had already set up an ambush, they were still outnumbered and caught by Yondu. After all, he was the only one who could fight now. But Rocket was Peter's partner. Though Yondu had been chasing Peter, he had always regarded Peter as his son. He didn't want to give Rocket to the Queen. However, his actions caused dissatisfaction among his men. The team also split. Yondu was still emotional. He didn't want to turn over Peter. Just then, he was attacked. It was Nebula. She tricked Groot into letting her go, then she sneaked on Yondu. Yondu and Rocket were caught by the rebellious thieves. On the spaceship, Yondu watched his fellowman be thrown into space by rebellious thieves to die. A wave of anger spread out all over him. Meanwhile, when Peter met Ego in the city, Ego told him his origin. His body was the planet. Millions of years had passed. He gave birth to life and began to turn into human form. He came to Earth and fell in love with Peter's mother. Peter's mother finally gave birth to him. On this planet, he was considered invincible. Since Peter had his gene, Peter could also use the power of the planet. His purpose was to keep Peter here to devour other planets together. These ambitious stars were boiling with blood. Obviously, he was excited. On the other side, Yondu and Rocket were locked up in a cage. Fortunately, Groot saved himself from prison with his mascot identity. The only way to get out was to get Yondu's exclusive weapon, the arrow controller. Fortunately, one of the guards was Yondu's undercover. He stole the whistle and arrow controller and gave it to Yondu. A massacre began. The whistle and arrow were really powerful. The rebellious thieves were wiped out by him whistling. The three left in a small spaceship. They were going back to Peter. Because Yondu knew the ambition of Peter's father, he was more aware that there was a big conspiracy behind it. On the other side, Mantis woke the Guardians up. She knew the plot of Peter's father. She didn't want to work for Ego anymore. Gamora was in crisis. Nebula found her in a fighter plane. She wanted to compete with her. The battle between the two sisters began. Eventually, it ended in reconciliation. The struggle between them was originally caused by misunderstanding. After the misunderstanding was cleared, they accidentally found a large number of bones in the cave. It turned out that these bones were the children of Ego. His purpose was to drain the energy of his own blood to expand his ambitions. On the other side, Ego took Peter to the hall, staring to brainwash him. He instilled the idea of ruling the universe in him. Eventually, Peter saw through his trick. It was just that this was Ego's home after all. Peter was penetrated by his energy. He started to absorb the blood power from Peter. Fortunately, the other Guardians arrived in time to save him. A war was about to break out. It was just that Ego's body was the planet. He integrated into the planet which couldn't be killed. There was only one way to defeat him, that was to destroy the core of his brain. This core was at the bottom of the planet. Everyone joined hands, flying the ship towards the ground, shooting out a laser to destroy the brain in one fell swoop. It seemed like they were going to succeed. At that time, the Sovereign was flying a spaceship to hunt down Peter. It spoiled their plan. In this way, they couldn't defeat Ego. When they were in despair, here came Mantis. She put Ego to sleep with her special ability. Now the only way was to enter the brain of the planet, exploding the core. The plan was for Groot to ignite the bomb because his size was small. Others were responsible for dealing with the Sovereign. With the cooperation of Yondu and Nebula, they released the laser which destroyed all the Sovereign. The angry Queen mentally exploded. The Guardians didn't have time to celebrate. After hypnosis, Ego woke up. They faced the power of the whole planet. Under such powerful forces, their attack was too weak. It didn't work at all. Peter watched his partner be swallowed up by the energy released by the planet. He was also restrained by this energy. Ego was ridiculing Peter for exceeding his power. He succeeded in riling up Peter. Peter had Ego's blood in his body. He could also control the power of the planet. Therefore, Peter successfully stimulated its potential to destroy Ego. The crisis had been resolved. When they were fighting, Groot pressed the detonator of the bomb. The other members were aboard the ship. Yondu stayed. He was here to save Peter because once the planet exploded, Peter would also be affected. When the explosion happened, Ego was destroyed. Peter was rescued by Yondu, but because there was only one cosmic suit, Yondu put it on Peter. He himself died in space. Though he was not Peter's biological father, he did something that his own father couldn't do. Peter held a grand funeral for Yondu. The whole universe was in silence for Yondu's death. At the end of the movie, baby Groot grew up. The soft features gradually disappeared. He became an internet-addicted teenager. He couldn't stay away from the smartphone.